The noise inside. How stress shrinks your thinking space and how to get it back. The noise that never stops. There's a certain kind of silence that never feels quiet. It's the kind you hear when your thoughts won't stop spinning and that restless hum behind your temples when you close. Your eyes and your mind feels louder than the world. Outside, Ava knew that sound well. She'd wake up every morning already exhausted, her brain sprinting before her feet hit the floor. Her mind would dart from "did I send that email?" to "what if I'm falling behind?" to "why can't I think straight anymore?" She wasn't burned out, not yet. But she was close, and the worst part wasn't the stress itself. It was the fog that followed. The loss of mental clarity, the way words sat on the tip of her tongue, names slipped her memory, and decisions that once felt easy now felt like heavy puzzles. To her, it felt like losing herself, piece by piece. What Ava didn't know was that she wasn't just tired, her brain was physically changing. What stress really does to the brain. When we talk about stress, most people think of emotions, anxiety, pressure, panic, but the brain sees stress as something much deeper, a signal of danger. When the brain perceives threat, whether it's a looming deadline or an argument, it triggers the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. The amygdala lights up, and in doing so it hijacks other regions, especially the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, decision-making, and self-control. In other words, when your stress is high, your thinking brain goes offline. Chronic stress doesn't just disrupt function, it reshapes structure. MRI scans show that prolonged exposure to stress hormones like cortisol can literally shrink the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus while enlarging the amygdala. It's a survival response gone rogue. The brain learns to live in constant fight or flight mode, hypervigilant, reactive, always scanning for what could go wrong. And that's when the noise starts. The chatter, the fog, the inability to focus, remember, or create. The breaking point for Ava. The breaking point came one morning in her office. She was halfway through writing a report she'd done dozens of times before, but this time she couldn't find the words. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, frozen, as though the sentences she needed were somewhere deep inside a fog she couldn't clear. She stared at the blinking cursor for 10 minutes straight. Then, in a small act of mercy, she pushed her laptop aside, walked out and sat in her car. For the first time in months, she didn't try to fix her mind. She just sat, breathing, crying quietly, feeling utterly blank. That's when something clicked. Maybe, she thought, this isn't just about being overworked. Maybe my brain is overwhelmed. Neuroplasticity. The brain's escape plan, the beauty and tragedy of neuroplasticity, is that your brain gets better at whatever you do repeatedly. If you practice calm, your brain wires for calm. If you practice stress, your brain wires for stress. The neural circuits that fire together wire together. Ava had unknowingly been training her brain for tension, rehearsing anxiety, every day until it became her brain's default mode. But the same principle that caused her fog could also undo. She began reading about mindfulness, not from a spiritual lens, but a biological one. She learned that every deep breath she took, every pause she allowed, every small act of stillness could trigger the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's natural calm mode. This system signals to the amygdala, it's safe now. Over time, the brain's alarm center quiets down. The prefrontal cortex, the thinking space, and starts to grow active again. That's how clarity returns, not through more thinking, but through less noise. The practice of stillness, Ava didn't meditate perfectly. She didn't even sit still most of the time, but she made one rule: no screens during her morning coffee. For 10 minutes, she'd just sit by the window, breathing, noticing, sipping. It was simple, even boring, but that quiet, that boredom was actually her brain's healing ground. In the absence of constant stimulation, her neurons began to reset their firing rhythms. The prefrontal cortex reconnected with the hippocampus. Her brain's thinking network, once drowned out by stress, started to hum again. After a few weeks, she noticed changes. She remembered more. She could focus longer. She didn't lose her train of thought mid-sentence. Her brain wasn't broken, it was rebuilding. What science tells us about silence. Modern neuroscience confirms what Ava discovered through experience. Mental rest rewires the brain. A 2019 study from Stanford found that short daily periods of stillness improve connectivity in the default mode network, DMN, the system linked to creativity, self-awareness, and insight. When the DMN is balanced, the mind wanders productively, connecting memories, solving problems subconsciously. When it's overstimulated, it produces the mental fog, anxiety, and noise we call burnout. Rest isn't laziness. It's the mechanism through which neuroplasticity repairs itself. In other words, clarity is built in silence. Rebuilding the mind over months, Ava's small acts of calm became rituals. Morning silence, midday walks without her phone, evening journaling to offload mental clutter. Each act was a gentle reprogramming. She noticed she no longer woke up in panic mode. The noise was still there sometimes, but quieter, like distant static instead of an alarm. She didn't feel like a new person. She just felt more herself again. And that's what healing often is, and not becoming someone else, but remembering who you were before the noise, how you can reclaim your thinking space. You don't need to escape to a cabin or quit your job to rewire your mind. You just need to give your brain what it's been missing: recovery time. Here are simple science-backed steps you can try. Micro breaks every hour. 60 seconds of stillness resets attention circuits. Morning sunlight regulates cortisol and boosts focus for the rest of the day. Breath work before bed calms the amygdala and helps the brain consolidate memory. Digital-free moments. The absence of stimulation lets your neurons rest and resynchronize. Gentle exercise increases blood flow and neurotrophic factors that support neuron growth. Neuroplasticity thrives in balance, activity and rest, focus and play, stimulation and silence. The science within you, your brain isn't against you. It's simply doing what it was designed to do: survive. But survival isn't the same as living. The good news? You can train your brain to choose clarity over chaos, presence over panic. Every mindful pause, every moment you choose peace over pressure is a signal. This is what safety feels like, and your brain listens. It rewires, it learns. Slowly, day by day, your inner world becomes quieter, not empty, but spacious. A moment of reflection. If you've ever felt like your mind is too noisy to think, too tired to care, too foggy to focus, you're not broken. You're simply overloaded. Your brain isn't failing you. It's asking for a breath. So the next time you feel the fog rolling in, don't fight it. Sit with it. Breathe through it. And remember, even silence is a form of progress, because healing your mind doesn't begin with more effort. It begins with less noise. Outro. If this story resonated with you, take a moment right now to breathe. And when you're ready, hit subscribe to join our community. Each week, we explore the science of calm, the art of healing, and the beauty of what happens when your brain learns to rest again. Your mind is rewiring itself, one story at a time. Would you like me to move directly to story 18 next? How stress changes memory and how to get it back, keeping this same clean, natural storytelling flow.